Hey listeners, after the pod, don't forget to claim your free 2-week trial on the Better Yoga Online Studio. You'll get unlimited yoga and breathwork classes guided by expert instructors. We're a small women-owned business, and you signing up for the free trial really makes a difference. Now here's the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome and welcome back to the Better Yoga Podcast. I'm your host, Kari Herendorf, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to introduce you to, or have Ben introduce you to our podcast, someone who has extreme depth, clarity, and devotion, not only to yoga practice, asana, but also to yoga philosophy. And I find him to be one of the most delightful people, but also inspiring as a yoga teacher and as a human. So please give a warm welcome to my friend and colleague, Ben Kalra. Ben is a beloved yoga teacher and would even use the word scholar, whose work bridges both the ancient wisdom with the modern life, which we are very big at here at Better Yoga. And he does it in a way that is extremely accessible for his students, but also profound. He has a gift for taking the subtle, sometimes elusive teachings of Patanjali and illuminating them not only with a sense of practicality, but also humor and heart. So welcome, Ben, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Kari. That's a beautiful intro. I feel very honored to be here and just to, be in community with you over the last several months and the Better Yoga team. And yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
So great. Ben, so we ask all of our participants, all of our guests, this question right out the gate. What does your practice look like these days?
Mm. I love this question, and it's a question that I find myself asking all the time, especially to my friends and teachers that I'm inspired by. I'm just so curious about the idea of practice and how we actually put the theory and philosophies of yoga into practice because, yoga philosophy, whether it's, Katona yoga or classical yoga philosophy, Yoga Sutras, whatever it is, like, it's always pretty clear that these things are great to conceptualize and understand theoretically, but they don't really mean much unless we put it into practice. So I think my answer to this question would change based on the season that you would ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were to ask me this maybe 6 months ago, my answer would be that I do the same Katona yoga home practice every single day, pretty much without exception. But in the current season that I'm in, it's a little bit more dynamic. I'm also in this season where I'm kind of like traveling full time-ish to teach and study and practice. And so the stability of my daily life isn't super present because I'm living out of a suitcase a lot and in different environments. And so with all of that said, what my practice really looks like now, kind of surprisingly, is going to the gym a good amount as a big physical practice. And I find that it's helping me feel better physically than I ever have. And I think being in the gym more is helping me free up my spiritual practice because it's no longer the burden of my yoga practice to be my sole physical fitness practice as well. And so I find that I'm in the gym more, I'm meditating more, and I do have my Katona yoga home practices that I do, but it's not every day anymore. And I find that my body is benefiting from no longer, after like almost a decade of doing yoga every day, I feel like my body is kind of benefiting from not doing yoga every day, from doing yoga maybe 4 or 5 days a week in some capacity. And the other days I can do something else. I can go to the gym. I love going on long walks, walking for 45 minutes to an hour at a time, either in silence or calling a friend. And I'm trying to be really mindful to have seated meditation be a daily practice.
I love that. And I think that as you were saying that, it just was an exhale and a permission for people because there's the Instagram of like yoga every damn day. It's like if it's punishing or dreadful, it's not, inviting. Where's the conversation, right? And the benefits of a daily practice, and Abby's a big fan of like that, but the practice itself changes, and you use the word seasons, right? As you're in a different season of the year or a different season of your life, the practice evolves and changes. And what you're finding now, maybe from your gym sessions, is what you were finding in your yoga. It's just becoming more well-rounded, right? Kind of
Yeah, it's all about becoming a sphere, right?
becoming a sphere. Yes, yes.
And like yoga
Um,
will always be the center of like any of my movement or spiritual practice. But yeah, everything works until it doesn't. So I'm trying to let myself be malleable and not be too attached to what the word practice might mean at any point.
yeah. Rigid things break.
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
You have studied many different kinds of yoga, from your first 200 hour, and then you are a Katona yoga teacher. I know that you practice and teach that primarily, I believe, but you also have Jivamukti and some somatics and functional movement and stuff. And I think from the classes that you have taught on our platform and are recorded on the platform, it's a very nice um, array, and you very much weave them all together really nicely with the Dharma. Can you talk about where on your training you became very, or first, interested in the yoga philosophy and how that may have invited you in to really go deep in that?
Yeah, I love this question because it wasn't immediate. My first entry into yoga was through meditation, but that had a lid on it. So even though I started with meditation, I didn't start learning yoga philosophy immediately. It took me a few years. But it was when I was taking my first 300-hour training a few years ago. And there's this one conversation that I will always remember where another student in the 300-hour training had just said something really wise. This is my fellow trainee. Her name is Heather. She said something really, really wise. And then I was like, wow, like, damn, Heather's like channeling right now. And our teacher, Gloria, stopped me. And she was like, no, she's actually not channeling. What allows Heather to speak like this is that she studies the sacred texts. So she kind of rewired my brain from thinking that it was some people that have this, natural spiritual inclination to articulate these very wise and impactful teachings, to actually all you got to do is study the sacred texts. And if you consistently study the sacred texts, the channel will open. And so from that point, um, about 3 years ago on the dot, I became greatly interested. And I was already studying the Yoga Sutras at that point, but
Mhm.
that's when it became serious. That's when it became less of a curiosity and more of a devoted thing that I was really serious about making more of a priority in my studies and in my life.
Yeah. So you went down the Svadhyaya, right? In terms of like the for listeners, if you've been in a teacher training, you've learned about the yamas and the niyamas, and if you just go wholeheartedly down one, the others kind of fall into place. And so this is when that moment, which is so beautifully, really right there for you at any moment, that moment of when that was the invitation in. Um, and yeah, and I think it's now made you be able to channel, right? To use your own words, and now you are that for other people, for a lot of your students, which is why, good teachers share things for their students, which keeps them coming back, right? It's not just um, the triangle pose or the studio. It's really a beautiful thing. And so you went deeper down into the Yoga Sutras. Are there other compendiums or ancient texts that you like and pull from?
Yes, so it certainly started with the Yoga Sutras, and I love the sutras, and I'm still continuing to learn them better and better as time passes. I'm currently in a season of really enjoying the Bhagavad Gita as I
Mm.
come back to the Gita and I start to really understand the overarching message and the big picture of the Gita. The more I come back to specific chapters and specific verses, I'm really connecting to it right now, which has been a lot of fun. And the Upanishads as well. And the Upanishads I'm newer to than the sutras or the Gita, but I find that some of the stories that are in the Upanishads, some of the like poetic way that the Upanishads teach these teachings is just really enjoyable for me. So I find that these three groups of texts, the sutras, the Gita, the Upanishads, they're all teaching the same things in different languages and different stories and different ways of articulating them. And so the more I get to know each one, the more fun and enjoyable it gets for me to study the other ones. And then the more I feel like I can teach the Yoga Sutras better, the more I study the Upanishads, even though they're
Mhm.
different texts, theoretically teaching different things, you know? I mean, people say that the Yoga Sutras is a dualistic text, you know? There's Purusha and there's Prakriti. You know, there's consciousness and then there's material life, and they're two different things. And then people say the Bhagavad Gita is a non-dual text, like everything is one. Krishna says, like, I am the divine consciousness in all beings. But I find that this is really short-sighted. Like they're really teaching the same things, just from a little bit of a different perspective. And so if you understand the Gita, it'll give you a lens to understand the sutras. Like if we want to talk in more of a Katona language, they're all just maps and we can just overlay all of them
Right.
on top of each other. And that's what really gives them depth.
Right. They're palimpsestic in nature, right? Like one, I love when a system is smart, it holds up against another system,
Mm,
right?
yes.
So you can put the Gita on top of the Upanishads. You can do the Vedas on top of the sutras. And and yes, because Purusha doesn't know itself unless there's Prakriti. There's nothing, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah, I
need
think,
the Shiva and the Shakti. You need them both. And, is your favorite quote from the Gita still 240, that no effort is wasted and there's no such thing as failure? So
yeah,
one informs the other,
truly. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, I love that.
What about you? Do you have a favorite, like, of the texts or any favorite, like, teachings from any of these sacred texts, whether it's ones that we've mentioned or outside of that?
My first yoga teacher training that I did was back in 2001, and it was at Integral Yoga. And so we really did a lot of studying about yoga philosophy and really, read the Gita and we read the Yoga Sutras. But of course, the four padas, you're really going to get the highlights. We kind of did like the greatest hits, which have been the greatest hits, and because it's like, what is yoga? How do you practice yoga? What does yoga reveal? How do you embody yoga? Right? Like, so it's like it's like 1 1 1 2 1 3 112 115, um but my favorite one that I think I learned all the way back then was the practice of Pratipaksha Bhavanam.
Mm,
So 233, I think it is. And that for me is the Yoga Sutra that the promise that it will change your life will really change your life. And 25 years later, my daughter, who is a senior in high school and applying to college, and had called me and it was like, Mom, I'm freaking out. I feel like I'm such a bad person. I'm just like, I don't know what. And she's like telling me like these things. And I was like, Lotus, just cultivate the opposite thought. Think about that person and what is a good quality about them, and just say that out loud. Like it's, and I can relate it back to like, this is brain training, right? Like you can think about it. Oh, all these studies reveal like you interrupt the negative, you interrupt the loop, you physically stop it, right? Because nothing burns out the mind more than that mental loop, right? That's what's exhausting. That's what burnout is. It's not from doing anything physical, but you got to like interrupt that. It's the rishis saw this thousands of years ago. They knew that. We are wired the same way. We're always looking for a resolution. We just get stuck on that hamster wheel of like, I'm not enough, you're not enough, I should have said that, like whatever the loop is, right? But to be able to really cultivate the opposite. And in that regard, also like the 4 locks and keys about like Maitri and Karuna, like, friendliness and compassion towards nice people, towards suffering people. And then for negative people, it's like the equanimity, which is where I'm still bravely working. Maybe maybe I go back and read it again.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I use the Pratipaksha Bhavana like every day pretty much, if I just notice myself in a state of anxiety, I'm like, okay, well that's how you feel, but what's the polarity to that? Or if I'm driving, it's like you're bound to get upset at someone while you're driving if they're tailgating you or they cut you off or you get stuck at all the red lights. It's like there's so many opportunities to just flip the natural inclinations of the mind and the things that the mind grasps at. And, easier said than done to be like, oh, I'm sad. Okay, Pratipaksha Bhavana, the opposite is that I'm happy, so now I'm happy. But at least we bring into our mind that there are other ways to perceive the present moment.
Yeah. And for you listeners that have not done a teacher training about that, it's like, it's really about, like Ben just said, cultivating the opposite thought to get you out of that, whatever tailspin you're going down. And it's brain training. But if you think about our propensity of like 70,000 thoughts a day, 90% of those are repetitive, 80% of those are negative. Like, it's like, I literally like teachers, I'm like, it's amazing we get out of bed every day. It's like just the fact that we get up and brush our teeth, it's like a win, I'm patting myself on my back for those of you who are listening in the car. Yeah. I mean, so why not just help ourselves a little bit more and really, but it really, like your happiness factor, it's why we know a gratitude practice works. Like that's what a gratitude practice is, whether you think about 5 things or whether you write them down before bed or when you get up in the morning, like the physicality of writing it, we know in Ayurveda actually like puts it into the white matter of the brain, that it literally inscribes it onto the nerves. And it will very quickly change your life. If you think about how long you've been yourself and maybe that propensity of like dress rehearsing tragedy, as I like to call it, it will really kind of begin to flip that switch and show you a different way, which is why I really, that one to me is just a lifesaver, a lifeline really for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like something Abby will often say is that like it's a compliment if we say that you don't look like yourself. And this is referring to like the asana practice, right? Because within our asana practice, we contain all of our unconscious habits. But it's the same like with our real lives, we contain all of our unconscious habits, and our mind contains all of its habits and its things that it does that maybe don't contribute to the most easeful or pleasant life. But it's like the yoga practice is really seeking to bring us from a place of being totally personal to being a little bit more universal. Like the consciousness that we have within us, this purity within us, is not personal. It's universal. So it is kind of this funny journey of like, how can we be less like ourselves
Yeah. Well,
while still like,
personal nature versus great nature, right? Because we're
yeah.
being affected by it anyway, right? It's like we've come away from how we used to live, right? And we're more, well, we can put the air conditioning on or put a sweater on or eat, out of season, everything is available, right? But it's that really coming back to, it's like also in the Yoga Sutras, and I think it was Swami Satchidananda's translation, because that was my first one because of the integral yoga, about the musk deer, that has like the scent gland. It's like this folklore deer that has a scent gland on his forehead, and it emits this beautiful smell, and he flits about looking for that smell, like looking for that smell forever all over the place. And it was like, it's coming from you the whole time. Like we know, like you said, we have it inside of us, right? It's like Glinda, like you had it in you the whole time. You had to find it out for yourself, right? And I just love, like, one of your special gifts, Ben, is really making the sutras accessible for people and weaving in, humor, and like you like to say, like, always leave room for a bad joke, which I appreciate myself. Um, but how do you, so in terms of, for people that are unfamiliar with the Yoga Sutras, what would you say if you could sum them up, and your best elevator pitch for picking up a copy?
So are you asking me to sum up the Yoga Sutras real quick? Or
Well,
like
no,
why
maybe.
someone might...
Yeah. In the next 5 minutes, just do the whole, maybe just the first two padas of them.
Well, the Yoga Sutras are really like a manual to the self.
Right.
And so the Bhagavad Gita is more of a story of the self. The Upanishads are more of like poems and musings and illustrations and, more stories about the self. And uh, the Yoga Sutras are very kind of direct. And just due to the nature of the sutras, the Gita has 700 verses, and the Gita is just less than 1% of the Mahabharata, which is 100,000 verses. So we're just dealing with, there's more room for these stories to be told in artful ways. But the Yoga Sutras, 196 sutras, and sutra means like thread or aphorism. And a lot of these sutras are very short. Some of them are 3 Sanskrit words, Atta Yoga Anushasanam is 1.1, which means now the teachings on yoga. 1.2 is Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, 4 words. Yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind. So these Yoga Sutras are very short, very brief, very concise, partially because they were passed down orally for a long time just by chanting the Yoga Sutras. And so it made sense that they were very brief and concise for the purpose of chanting them as practice. But with that said, the Yoga Sutras really just give us instruction on what yoga is, where we're going. So what's the destination? Like the Yoga Sutras have the map of like how to practice and what to practice, but they also explain to us why are we practicing. So where are we going? What's the destination? And the destination is the realization of the true nature of the self. So to realize that we are the seer and not the seen. So we are the witness and not the mind or the body. We are that which witnesses the mind and the body.
Then the seer abides in their nature.
Yes, yeah. So the whole, so we can go through 1.2 through 1.4, those 3 Yoga Sutras, which within it contain the whole teachings of the entire text, which is number 1 or 1.2. Yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind. Yoga is the nirodha of the vrittis of the chitta, the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind.
I think we just lost a few people.
Yeah. Basically, yoga.
You're version, guys.
I know. You're just trying to nirodha your chitta vrittis. You're
And it's so interesting because, okay, so he's talking, again, 196 threads, sutras threads, like little pearls of wisdom, right? And when I would teach in a YTT, in introducing the Yoga Sutras, it was like, okay, now yoga. Yoga is the cessation of the mind. 2 out of 196. Okay, then the rest of them explain number 2. That's it.
Yes.
Because that's what yoga is. Now yoga, this is what yoga is really mastering the mind. It's not about what came to the West and what took off and what is like, it's like, you're kind of like, you're so stuck at the beginning, right? You're on number 3 of the limbs, right? Asana, then like not going anymore. But it's like, okay, if none of you have any anxiety, depression, mental, like if none of your vrittis are, if you are that clear lake, then you don't need yoga. Just go get a coffee.
Yeah.
Call it a day. Go to the cafe. I'll see you after class, right? Like the whole rest of the sutras explain it. And what I like about you, and if you don't follow Ben on Instagram, you really do, because you should, because the yoga humor is hilarious. You have a gift for keeping the essence of the teachings, but contextualizing them in a way that is approachable and applicable to modern life.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And that's always the intention when I'm teaching, because these teachings are so heady and esoteric, and they're easy to become really intellectual and academic, which is great. Like, I'm really grateful that there's a lot of academics and there's a lot of people who have studied Sanskrit and the sacred texts in an academic setting, so I get to learn from them. But I think the downside of this is that it's really hard for a lot of everyday people, a lot of everyday practitioners or students or teachers of yoga to get a lot out of these teachings when they seem so separate from like our messy everyday lives on the ground, where we have jobs, we have relationships, we have responsibilities. Like, we're not these monks who can just meditate in a cave all day. I mean, some of us are, but the majority of us are not. And so, some people say that the Yoga Sutras were written for monks and ascetics and sadhus and people who had renounced material life. But I find that to be a little bit of an irrelevant point. Like, it almost doesn't matter, because I find them incredibly applicable to modern everyday life. Because, the Yoga Sutras, like, we've gone through those first few, and, yoga's about stilling the mind so that we can realize the true nature of the self instead of identifying as the mind itself. But then on the path that the sutras lays out, it lays out the fact that we struggle with things like laziness and dullness and distraction, and the sources of suffering are, attachment and aversion and fear and ego, and all of the things that the sutras describes, I find, are just like really describing the modern day human as much as they might be describing the ancient monk.
I'm always like, wow, we really haven't
We haven't changed.
We really
Yeah,
have
our
different
circumstances have
stressors,
changed,
different
you know?
stressors. Same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Same
that's
mind,
why
same nervous system. And almost, I would say, the teachings are even maybe more relevant, because people 2,000 years ago maybe had a little bit of a head start because they had less distractions around them. And now we're,
it's worse now. It's so much worse.
it's better and it's worse, right?
Maybe we should
Like,
change our name to Better/Worse Yoga.
right? Worse yoga. We promise it's not that bad.
It can only go up.
It can only go up from here.
From here. Oh, it's like when I work with a lot of people physically, right? With people that have something going on like anatomical or biomechanical, and it's like they're like, oh, orthotics. I'm like, great, get a picture of your foot on its worst possible day, and then just go on with that. It's like it can get better.
Yeah.
How do you help your students? And when I want to talk at the end, make sure everyone knows like where to find you, because I know you've just recorded some programs about the Yoga Sutras, correct?
I have a live online Yoga Sutras course that starts in about a month on January 6th.
Perfect. This is perfect timing. So how do you help your students from learning or knowing the philosophy to embodying it?
Hmm. This is a challenging one, and really it takes time because me myself, like I'm still working on the embodiment of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I love to call myself like a Jnana yogi. So like, in the Bhagavad Gita, it outlines kind of like the main paths of yoga, which are, karma yoga, the yoga of action, dhyana yoga, the yoga of meditation, Jnana yoga, the yoga of study and knowledge and wisdom, bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion and love. And I love to, it's most natural and most easeful for me to be on the path of Jnana yoga and just like studying and accumulating knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But then at a certain point, it's like, it's actually time to put down the books and to roll up the yoga mat and to really try to implement these things in our real lives. So kind of like this morning, I woke up and my house is a mess just because I've been traveling nonstop. And, I was going to practice. I was actually kind of excited to do a morning practice today. I had the space, but instead I just cleaned and organized for a couple hours. And that felt like actually more of a real practice than just getting on my mat and practicing around the mess that was my house.
Yeah, well, you were practicing
Um,
Saucha, right?
right. And
Cleanliness.
so, it's a constant pursuit and, implementing these teachings into relationship and into work and just into how we treat people and how we treat our bodies, is a constant challenge. I find that like when I'm leading trainings and stuff, I find that before I get into the weeds of teaching like specific things out of the text, like journal prompts are really, really helpful because that gets us immediately and, setting up journal prompts that are about the text, but also not. So like whenever I teach the Gita, I love to just pose the question, like, what internal battles are you facing right now? Because the Gita is this real and this metaphorical battle about our ignorance versus our clarity, And so, yeah, like it's a challenge because it actually requires us to slow down. And the texts are really just telling us to be and to try to let our bodies and our minds be a channel and a current for our consciousness. And the way we do this is we slow down and we quiet down. But this is so hard to do in regular life, which really encourages us to speed up and do the most. Even as yoga teachers, like you and I, we're doing the most. We're doing the most out here. Like
Yeah.
we were just talking about this before the call. Like you yourself, you're a parent to humans and you're a parent to all these animals on the farm. You're now a parent to a physical in-person yoga studio once again, as well as to an online yoga studio. And then you're doing home renovations. And like, my life has its own versions of that. So it's like we want to juice the most out of life to really live a good material life, but where's the balance in slowing down and letting there be integration, which often requires a little bit of a sacrifice of some of these material pursuits and aspirations that we have in order to orient ourselves more towards these more spiritual and subtle aspirations. So a constant practice that I'm really just continuing to figure out as time goes on.
Save 15% on Ayurvedic products like oils, herbs, cleansing supplies, and more from Banyan Botanicals. Use the code 15KARI. That's 15KARI. The link is in our show notes. You deserve to know exactly what's in your greens and protein powders. That's why Vibrant Health fully discloses every ingredient by dose and never uses proprietary blends. Save 20% on your next order with the code BETTER_YOGA. That's better_yoga for 20% off Vibrant Health supplements and superfoods.
Yeah, and going back to what we'd said about the seasons of our life, like just when you talked about that, I was like, yeah, it's like a juggling act. And as we move through the seasons of our life in that pitta time of life where you're like, building a career, raising a family, and then maybe taking care of aging parents, it's like you're literally, to use that fire metaphor, burning the candle at both ends that we don't want to burn out. So like what else can fall away? And then, I'm in another phase of life than you are right now, where you're really like almost like that yoga teacher, like gig economy, right? Like you're traveling, you're teaching, you're spreading, you're making it happen. And as a yoga teacher, for those of you who are listening, unless you have your own studio that you're pouring all that into, you're teaching at many different places, sometimes in the same day. But then it's about what we're talking about more, that the spiritual pursuit, when you go into more of like the wisdom years, right? And that, that all that doing really becomes the being, right? And we're human beings. We make the joke that we're really like human doings, and humans doing too much, right? But really that coming back to the whole point of yoga, and as you said, what really brought you in was like meditation, right? The whole yoga practice, the asanas, prepare the cup. The pranayama is to fill the cup. The meditation is the elixir that you actually finally get to drink. But you're not going to drink anything if you've got a leaky cup, right? So that's why we need the asana. You're not going to, but the real, the spiritual pursuit are the sacred texts, are the really, like Abby would say, the psychoanalysis, like why we do what we do, like what is the subconscious? What are the real, going back to that great nature, what is our
Yeah.
birthright? What is the real? And it is through the slowing down and taking that time, and really like, and it's so counterintuitive, like so many things in life and in yoga, right?
Do the
Twisting the right, you
opposite.
got to move your butt to the right to twist it right, or it's not a twist.
Yeah, you got to go back to go forward, you got to go down to go up, and you got
Exactly, like
to
the ground reaction force.
like
It's root to rise. So
yeah,
lovely.
yes. And like speaking of that, like being and doing, like we're human beings, but we're more like human doings. But also like you have to do a lot of doing to get to the being, and you have to be in your being to do the doing well. It's like there's a verse in the Gita that says there's action in every inaction and inaction in every action. So they don't exist without each other.
Right.
For most of us, we're not going to live a good life if we're only being, and we're only, like I could sit at home in meditation for 10 hours a day, but at some point,
It's not going to pay your bills.
it's not going to pay my bills. It's not really going to help the world. And I probably won't reach enlightenment anyways.
Right. Right. It goes back to
But,
balance again, right? And like you said, the Gita, like no effort goes unwasted. Or to take it back to the Katona, it's like never waste a good crisis.
yes.
or you're suffering. Use it to your advantage eventually, Yeah, and hopefully you'll come around. Is there a particular sutra that for you in the last decade has changed in its meaning or its efficacy for you, or in how you teach it?
Hmm. Well, my favorite sutra has always, for years, has been, 1.12. That the state of yoga is attained through practice and
Abhyasa
non-attachment.
Vairagam.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this one has continued to evolve in what I understand practice to be and what I understand non-attachment to be. And of course, in the following Yoga Sutras, so in 1.13 up until 1.16, I think,
16.
Patanjali talks about what practice is and what non-attachment is. But, I've really been thinking a lot for years about the idea of desire. And, the text talks so much about desire and how it's really desire that leads to our demise, but it's not the desire itself. And the Gita says, like, you can abandon all of your desires, but like that's not going to get you anywhere. Because you can abandon your desires but still be attached to them. You can tell yourself that you're never gonna eat a cookie ever again, but if you're still thinking about the cookies, then denying yourself from the cookie is not actually going to bring any form of liberation. So
No,
you're
it
actually
actually
better off.
creates more suffering, actually, right?
Right, right.
Right.
And
I
so
think that's where a lot of people get tripped up.
yeah, it's like, so what is non-attachment? We're not trying to detach ourselves from life itself, but we are trying to detach ourselves from the satisfaction of our desires. So have your desires, but don't be attached to if and when and to what extent they are fulfilled. Um, so, have the cookie, but we don't want to be so attached to the cookie that we're suffering when the cookie is no longer there. But we also don't want to deny ourselves from the cookie and then suffer because we don't have the cookie. So it's kind of like this thing with attachment. It's like when we don't get the thing, we suffer because we don't have the thing. But then when we get the thing, we suffer because when we no longer have the thing, we're sad about it. Um,
Well, then it just becomes about the next thing.
it's just about when can I get this next cookie
The
now
next
that I don't have cookie anymore. But in the end, I am cookie and cookie is me. No, just
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
but so I'm constantly
Learn
thinking
how
to
to bake your
myself,
own cookies.
right,
You'll never be without.
yeah, learn to fish. You'll never be without food. But I'm always reorienting how I relate to attachment, and I also consider myself someone with a somewhat addictive personality. It's why like I'm covered in tattoos.
One a year, they
You know,
say, one a
so
year.
so I'm constantly discovering attachments of my own, and some of these attachments just go so deep in our minds. Like sometimes it takes years to really discover these little attachments that we have, and how can I really stop gripping? Because once I'm no longer gripping to anything, then I'm actually free. And this relates to material life, but also just the gripping that our mind does, and even just our beliefs, the way we think that the world should be, the way we are attached to certain morals and certain standards and certain expectations of other people. Um, and it constantly brings suffering and dis-ease. So that's a sutra, just the whole idea of attachment and desire, which is everywhere in all of the sacred
Yeah.
texts.
I've been exploring a lot lately in my own body and in clients that I work with. And remind me, you have experience in somatics, correct?
Just a little
A
bit,
little
but
bit
I
of
actually
somatics.
am taking a whole course on somatics starting in January, so I'm excited.
So somatics, and it's very interesting, and I'm going to try and circle it back to our beginning of our conversation. But so somatics is more of like a bottom up rather than a top down methodology, right? And somatics really deals with the nervous system. And before we started recording, you had asked me about the yoga studio that I opened up, and I'm having this conversation a lot with people lately about how it's going. And it's like really my mission to open the studio was to be back in community with people, be physically, 'cause I've been teaching online since COVID, um, and to be in the room with people, but really to be in my own community, not just traveling around and teaching and leading trainings, but to bring the power and the wisdom of yoga that I know these practices to be so powerful and so healing into my community. And because I am in the season of finally learning the importance of rest and restoration, to bring offerings that aren't just about physical prowess, flexibility or strength, but about true healing and reset for the nervous system. And that's really what somatics does. And trusting the inherent wisdom and tapping into the inherent wisdom that is the body and all of its healing mechanisms, which through our, you know, through trial and tribulation and trauma and stress and parenting and heritage, we don't trust that, or people have begin to shut that down. So really beginning to waken that up and allowing the movement to, like organic from the inside out. And to go back to the gripping, when you can really feel, and for years I've seen it in, even when I was like in my 30s, I would see these women or these men in their 50s and 60s and 70s and beyond. The more advanced, when my yoga practice was more only like 10 years old or 15 years old, these people have been practicing for 30 years. They can move a pinky toe and you can see that it reverberates. They can feel that in their palate, you know?
Mm.
And when I would be in the room with Richard Freeman, right, like that is what it was like aspirational for me. And to be able to feel where these grippings are, where these attachments are, or even the Sanskrit word of granti, which is like a knot, right? Which is
Mm.
a lot of times the physical manifestation of that subconscious patterning or these little attachments that you have. And to begin to be able to unravel the granti and to feel the entire being release. And on the physical level, what happens through the nervous system with that? And you can think about the kosha models of like releasing the annamaya kosha will release the pranamaya kosha. So the energy opens up and then that releases the mind, right? So that like, top down, but then the bottom up is you release the mind and then you release the the energy and you release the energy and it goes both ways. And that's, to me, that is like the modern day application of these ancient teachings. And if you can just, because some people work better bottom up than top down, or and the katona for me is very heady. Why I love it is because it's engages the mind throughout the whole body, but it doesn't mean there's not room for you create the body opening and the mind will follow, right? I just got so
Yeah.
excited about just talking about all
Yeah, I love this.
that.
I love this. Well, I do want to know, I have something to say, but I do want to know if you have any favorite, like, purely somatic practices. Like, I know this might be an elementary question, but I know a lot of people enjoy like the tapping and the shaking and like all that kind of
Mm.
stuff. So I'm curious about that, because I've started to enjoy some like, some more kind of less organized, like shaking and tapping stuff in
I
my
just
practice.
I just participated. We had at the studio a deep rest workshop. And before you did the rest, we did like 3 minutes of shaking. And it was profound what that enabled. Like, you had to get it out.
Wow. Is there any like specific technique in the shaking or is it very open-ended?
No, there was just like music playing. It was like, don't even look at the person next. You just let it out. And it changed over the course of the 3 minutes. Like it totally changed. It was almost like, um, some freedom beget freedom somewhere else, let alone something else to
Mm.
shake loose. But it was just like, it was like doing the progressive muscular contractions. And when you lead someone into Shavasana, sometimes, or you would do that, squeeze and release, and then you would just like really just be
Mm.
able to really land. Um,
Nice.
in my yoga therapy training, we had a whole like somatics thing. And what I really loved, because I love to teach a lot of things about the shoulders, is like the confluence of like the internal and external rotation and like moving the head and just being able to feel, because there's so many more of the feeling nerves than the doing nerves. Jill Miller talks about this all the time. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense, to go that way as well.
Yeah.
And I think they're
Cool.
both really valuable. And I think that they can inform each other. To go back to you saying how the Gita is not different than the sutras. They're just from a different way in, it's like truth is one, paths are many. That's been attributed to many different gurus. So,
Yeah.
whatever yoga school you're in, they say that one, they're the one that said
Yeah.
it. So I don't know.
Yes, exactly. They're all just different. Like you could get into your house from the back door or the front door, but you can still get to the kitchen either way and then cook yourself a meal. And so I kind of like what you're saying with the top down or the bottom up. Like, that's what I love about yoga, is that you can come into it from a more intellectual and heady place. And like for some people, Katona yoga is very intellectual. There's a lot of intellectuals who really love Katona yoga. But honestly, for me, and I do love the intellectual and theoretical lens of Katona yoga, but for me, it's the embodiment of Katona yoga. For me, feels like bottom up, whereas like my yoga philosophy studies feel like top down. And they both kind of trickle into each other. It's like, it's kind of like, this is a funny metaphor, but I get the natural peanut butter where the oil separates from the peanut butter. And so I've started doing this thing where I turn the peanut butter upside down.
Best life
I just
hack
found
ever.
out about this.
Saw it on Instagram years ago. All my jars are upside down. It's
I'm like, why did no one tell me this? I go through peanut butter like it's, like
it's hilarious. As soon as you start saying like, store it upside down, game changer, total game changer.
But, just letting the oil kind of trickle back up, and then it's easier to stir together. And so whatever you
then
put
you
in
don't
at
have
the
to
top,
throw out the bottom quarter of the jar because it's just inedible.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So,
dropping real wisdom here on the pod today. Real wisdom.
Yeah.
Turn your
Yeah.
nut
And
butters
if you're getting the no stir peanut butter, just I know it's easier, but look, it's worth it. It's worth it. You can use the metaphor of letting the oil trickle back into the hardened peanut butter. So whether you start at the bottom up or the top down, like it all trickles in, and whatever you learn and put into your mind, hopefully it can trickle into your embodiment, and whatever you put into your body and your embodiment, it will affect the way you think. So everything is everything, right?
Yeah. So if listeners were going to start today with one small doable practice rooted in yoga philosophy, what would you recommend?
I would say for a sitting practice, I would recommend sitting and just observing your breath. It's my personal favorite form of meditation. The Buddhists call it anapana. Just sitting and noticing your breath, and your mind will wander. Notice that it wandered, and then bring it back to the breath. This is what you were saying earlier about it's mind training. And this gets easier over time. Before a more like material or embodied practice, I would say you can go outside and really just be with nature. So like I can look out this window right now, and I'm blessed that I can be in my house and look outside and see trees. And even though it's kind of the depths of winter, there's still some leaves on the trees, and the leaves are moving around and blowing a little bit. So putting your mind on something, the teachings of the Yoga Sutras teach us that our meditation practice should have an object. So we shouldn't just sit and kind of muddle inside of the mind. We should pick something to focus our awareness on, something like the breath, or in this case, you could pick a tree or a leaf or a mantra. So you could chant Om, but do something or sit and choose something where you can form a relationship with that and notice the stories that your mind wanders to. Don't try to judge it or control it, but just observe it and then bring it back to that thing that you're trying to build relation with. And it really is training the mind, because our attention and our awareness has become a really scarce resource in the modern day age of distraction and stimulation. So that's what I'd recommend. And that's what I always need myself.
I love that. Yeah, and it's because it's an attention economy, and we don't have it anymore. It's like, tell me in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
'Cause
I'd
that's
love to
the
say that I'm
attention
enlightened,
span.
but I might go check Instagram right when we get off this call. So we're gonna we'll see. I'll try to be good. I'll try to
We'll
be
see
good.
you there. See you there. Okay. And finally, what do you hope people feel or understand differently after engaging with your teachings on the Yoga Sutras or on the Bhagavad Gita?
Mhm. I hope they feel how I felt when I started studying this stuff, which is like refuge. So during the periods of my life where I felt the most like madly depressed, it's because I just, I was like, there has to be more. Like, there's no way this is it. There's no way we're just here to like live and like work a job and like maybe save up enough money to buy a house. And then we get old and hopefully there's someone to take care of us and then we die and then it's over. And like this idea that this material life was it tortured me. And I was always a realist. I was always someone who kind of doubted religion and spirituality because I didn't understand it enough to accept it. So I was a skeptic, which I think was good because it allowed me to get all of that questioning out immediately. But when I started to read the sacred text, when I started to meditate more consistently, it was just like it was like being held, and it was the restoration of a non-existent sense of faith. And faith and fear are the same. They're both projections into the future. And so I found that in my life, when I had no sense of faith, what I did have was fear. And now that I do have deep faith, my fear is a lot more manageable. I'm not going to say I don't have any fear, but
Right.
it's a lot more manageable. And the faith really gives me this refuge that regardless, everything is okay because everything I fear is temporary, you know, everything that relates to this material life, my body, my possessions, my status, it's all temporary. But the true self is immortal, unchanging, and everlasting, and pure, and peaceful. And so the teachings have really given me the refuge that there is more than this material life, and that feels really safe and really comforting for me to rest in. And it gives me more purpose than just like waltzing through this material life to try to accumulate things, and then one day it's all over. So I don't know. I think it'll be something different for everybody, but I hope the teachings for each person that opens their heart to them can at least illuminate some part of their mind or spirit to the universal truth that there is really something deeper to discover in this life.
Um, Faith and fear are the same. We just got the name for the episode. I love it.
Nice.
I was like, oh, say more. And then as you're explaining it, I was like, yeah, it's just like a vata balancing thing, right? 'Cause it's just
I gotta give a shout out to my friend Justin because I heard that from him. And he's not a yogi, but he is a strong Christian, and he
yeah.
said that to me at some point within the last year or two. And I find that we're able to engage in really interesting dialogue. Him from his religious observation, and me from my yoga studies. And so I got to give a shout out to my friend Justin. I'm always just learning more from people who are on similar but
A
different
path.
paths.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Well,
path. Yeah.
truth is one, paths are many. There we are again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. How can people find you?
I am pretty active on Instagram at Ben Kalra, BenKalra. My website is ben-kalra.com, and I usually put all my links there for if I'm teaching in any different places or doing any online courses or retreats. Um, I have a newsletter that I'm trying to be much more consistent in because I really do love long form writing.
Mhm.
And so you can sign up for my newsletter at ben-kalra.com/newsletter. And I think that's it.
And you're on betteryoga.net, recorded
Yes,
on
practice
Bandwidth.
online
Yep.
at Better Yoga. I'm contributing new classes every month, so that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, we love having you. And as I said, Ben, you are um, really a teacher that embodies equanimity
I
and
try. If you could
friendliness.
only know how non-equanimous my mind was. But that's why I need it. I'm here just because I need the same medicine that I'm offering to everybody else.
Well, we teach what we need to learn, as they say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been
Thank you.
lovely getting to talk to you. Thank you so much. Yeah, find Ben. His Instagram reels of the yoga hybrid classes, fan favorite. Fan favorite. I love it.
So fun. Gotta
Yeah.
have some fun with it. Gotta
You got it.
take your practices seriously, take yourself lightly.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for today, Ben.
Thank you,
Oh,
Kari.
and
It's
now
an
last
honor.
question. If you weren't teaching yoga, what would you be doing?
Sad. I would be
Sad face emoji.
That's it. I would be, honestly, maybe I'd be a monk, which is still kind of yoga.
But
But
you're such
in
a
a
gifted
perfect
photographer.
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot. I love photography. So I would just be I would be a full-time photographer, and I love writing as well. So I know that's another challenging path, but I love writing. I love photography. So I would be doing something creative, and I think the sadness would only come if I had no outlet for that creativity. But yoga is my favorite outlet for that.
Okay. Well, again, thank you, Ben. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Kari.
And
It's an
thank you
honor. I
for
really
listening,
appreciate you.
everybody. Yeah, yeah. All right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays, everybody. Take a deep breath. Be kind to yourself. And yeah, see you soon.
Bye.